In this lesson we're going to cover members. In Envisioneer, if you drop your list down on the member icon, you can place a member in by picking points. That's putting them in a level situation. You can put a member in by matching plane. You can actually create portal frames, and you can convert framing to members. So let's start with the picking points. So basically, if I wanted to go and put in, say, the pitching beams for this front porch area, if I go and select members by picking points, I can then come in and select a material. Let's just grab, say, that 140 by 35. And if I come over to the porch area and click on that wall, because I want it to sort of come from there, and I want it to come over to the center point of the post and then over to the center point of that wall there. What that's doing, if I go and place a camera now and have a look at it in the front view, what you're going to see is there is the timber. Now what happens if I go into the properties of that timber? A member, under your details of the property, will place the insertion point, or the reference point as it's called here, at the midpoint of the top of the member. So naturally, if I'm placing this in on the ground floor location, if you remember, the ground floor level is 300. So the top of this piece of material is sitting at 300. So this is one way you can put in your pitching points, but you've got to be aware it's putting it down on the floor. So if you want it up at 2440, which is our ceiling height, then come into a 3D view, select both those members we put in for the pitching plate, and then elevate it. And then if you type 2440, it'll pop it up where it belongs, as you can see, inside the roof there. You don't see it in 3D, but you come back to 2D and it's sitting in the right position, and therefore you can quantify it. If you wanted to place it at the correct height when you insert it from the first picking of the points, you should then add a location, call it pitching plates and what have you, and set the floor level to 2440, and then all your pitching beams will go in at that height. The second option on the list is members by matching plane. Now what that will do is it'll allow you to put a member in at a slope. Now we covered this in the tips and tricks on columns by putting a surface in and then putting a U-beam matching the slope of the surface so that I had a sloping column. In this little exercise, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a couple of rafters sloping to match the roof, so it'll give you an idea. So if I go members by matching plane, I'll just use the same member, but look down the bottom left hand corner here and it's telling you to select a surface. So if I go and pick the line that indicates the fascia, that's picking the surface. Now down the bottom left hand corner it's asking me to pick first insertion point. Well, if I pick a point, say on the end there, and drag it out, right click and finish, and then go and have a look at that in 3D, see what it's doing. It is actually, it's placed that member in off the corner of the roof, sloping at the same pitch as that 25 degrees. Now one of the things you can do, because this might be in a recess in a roof or a courtyard area as exposed rafters or whatever you want to use this application for, you will notice the end conditions of this member are squares. So if I go into the properties of the member and go to the details, here it is here. See the end conditions. The first end is set to square, the second end is set to square. If I click on plumb and then hit OK, there you have it. I've got plumb at both ends. I can then right click and I can duplicate, I can array. Now I'll just do the array, because what the array will do is you can gradually do lots of copies in one hit. So what I want to do is, this is running across the page when I'm in a plan view. So I'm going to need a number of rows. So let's say I want 10 rows, one column. The distance between the rows, let's say it's 600, and then hit OK and see what I've got. I've ended up with a number of rafters going across the page, all set to the spacings that I've done, and I've done it all in one hit using the array option. Okay, it's something you should have a play with. Alright, now I'll just delete those, so I'll just select one of them. I'll go and select all similar, right click and delete, and all of those have gone, just for the time being, just for the exercise. Now, our next one is portal frames. With portal frames, you've basically got to set up your members on what you're going to use for your frames each time you go into it. So let's say for the column, I'm just going to come down and I'll find a universal beam and select OK.